Good morning, students. How are you, students? Students, in previous lecture, I completed concept of the polynomial. And students, today I will start exercise 2.1. Students, in this exercise, only one question, and its 6 parts is given. In this exercise, we find zeros of the polynomial. Using graph, we find zeros of the polynomial using graph. So students, y equals p of x, a polynomial given, and we find zeros of the polynomial. Students, in previous lecture, in that lecture, if we find zeros of the polynomial using graph, then students, you know that graph intersect the x-axis how many points? That graph intersect the x-axis how many points? And that points are number of zeros of the polynomial. So students, in first part, this graph not intersect the x-axis. This is x-axis, and this graph not intersect the x-axis. So students, how many zeros of this polynomial? So its answer, no zeros. Its answer, no zeros. Because this graph not intersect the x-axis. And students, in the second part now, this graph intersect the x-axis. How many points? 1 point. This 1 point. So, how many zeros of this polynomial? How many zeros? 1 zero. So, it means how many zeros? 1 zeros. Okay? And students, in the third part, this graph intersect the x-axis. How many points? 1, 2, 3. It means, yes students, how many zeros of this polynomial? 3 zeros. How many zeros? 3 zeros. And students, in fourth part, this graph intersect the x-axis. This graph intersect the x-axis how many points? 2 points. So how many zeros of this polynomial? 2 zeros. And finally students, this graph, question number first part fifth, this graph intersect the x-axis. This graph intersect the x-axis how many points? 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many zeros? 4 zeros. 4 zeros. And students, now part 6. Students, this graph intersect the x-axis how many points? This graph intersect the x-axis, there are 4 points. 1, 2, 3. How many points? 3. So, how many zeros of this polynomial? 3 zeros. 3 zeros. Okay students, so this your exercise 2.1 complete. Student, I repeat this graph not intersect the x-axis, the number of zeros, how many zeros? No zeros. And this graph intersect the x-axis how many points? 1 point. So how many zeros? 1 zeros. This graph intersect the x-axis how many points? 3 points. So 3 zeros. So students, we find zeros of the polynomial using graph. So this your exercise 2.1 complete. Okay students, now we start exercise 2.2. Now we start exercise 2.2. Yes students, now we start exercise 2.2. Yes students, In this exercise 2.2, now we discuss on relationship between zeros and coefficient of a polynomial. Yes, students, exercise 2.2. In this exercise, now we discuss on relationship between zeros. Relationship between zeros and coefficient of a polynomial. Yes, students, in this exercise, now we discuss on relationship between zeros and coefficient of a polynomial. So, what is the meaning of this? Suppose a polynomial, a quadratic polynomial is given ax square plus bx plus c. Yes, students, a quadratic polynomial is given ax square plus bx plus c. And students, you know, in this question, in this polynomial, coefficient of x square is small a and coefficient of x is small b and constant term is c. Students, you know what is the meaning of coefficient? Coefficient means multiple of x square. A, multiple of x, b, and this constant term. And students, now we discuss on relationship between zeros and coefficient of a polynomial. So, suppose students, this polynomial, suppose its two zeros are alpha and beta. Yes, students, let its two zeros are alpha and beta. So, what is the meaning of alpha and beta? Alpha and beta, these are Greek words. And alpha, beta, what is the meaning of this? It means value of x, one value alpha and one value beta. Because student, this is quadratic equation. And quadratic equation, how many zeros? There are two zeros. And suppose these unknown zeros are alpha and beta. It means one value of x alpha and one value of x beta. It means these both are zeros of the polynomial. So students, what is the relation between these zeros and coefficient of the polynomial? Yes, students, alpha plus beta, it means sum of zeros. Alpha plus beta, it means sum of zeros. Yes, students, sum of zeros, it means alpha plus beta and its formula minus b by a. Its formula minus b by a. Yes, students, what is the means of b? B means coefficient of x. And what is the means of a? Coefficient of x square. It means b coefficient of x. B coefficient of x and a mean coefficient of x square. Okay. After that, student, now we find product of zeros. It means alpha into beta. Alpha into beta, it means product of zeros. Product of zeros. And it means c by a. Yes, students. What is the mean of c and what is the mean of a? C means constant term. Yes, students. C means constant term. It means this c. Constant term upon a. A means coefficient of x square. A means coefficient of x square. So students, in this exercise, we discuss on relationship between zeros and coefficient of a polynomial. Yes, students, I repeat this. Suppose a quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c, and suppose its two zeros are alpha and beta, then alpha plus beta equals sum of zeros, it means minus b by a equal minus b mean coefficient of x and a mean coefficient of x square. And alpha beta, this is product of zeros, it means c by a, c mean constant term and a mean coefficient of x square. Now students, complete this concept. Now we start exercise 2.2. So students, exercise 2.2, question number first. Student, in this question, first 6 part is given. I solve question number, first part. Student, in this question, a polynomial is given, p of x square minus 2x minus 8. P of x equal x square minus 2x minus 8. This polynomial is given. And in this question, find the zeros of the quadratic polynomial and verify relationship between the zeros and coefficient. So students, what process we use in this question? So students, if we find zeros of this polynomial, first we use middle term is split. X square minus 2x minus 8. Yes friends, first we use middle term split. First and last multiply, then we obtain 8x square. And if we subtract the number, then we obtain middle number 2x. Students, what is the suitable factor? If we multiply the numbers, then we obtain 8. And if we subtract the number, then we obtain 2x. What is the suitable factor? 4 and 2. 4 2s are 8 and 4 minus 2 equals 2. So students, in this question we use middle term is split. X square minus 4 2s are, it means 4x and 2x are its suitable factor, minus 8. Okay. We use middle term split because this polynomial is quadratic polynomial. So how many zeros of this polynomial? There are 2 zeros. Okay. It means we find 2 values of x here. So student, we use middle term split, multiply first and last, then we obtain 8 minus 8x square, and if we less the number, then we obtain 2x. So suitable factor 4 and 2. Now we take common. What is the common in first two? X minus 4. What is the common in last two? 2. X minus 4. So, x minus 4 and x plus 2 is 2 factors. So, x minus 4 and x plus 2 is 2 factors. Now, students, we find zeros of the polynomial because in this question mentioned find the zeros of the polynomial and verify relationship between the coefficient. So if we find zeros of the polynomial, then we take this value equal to 0. In previous lecture, student, you know, we find the zeros of the polynomial. Then we take this value equal to 0. So what is the p of x value? X minus 4, x plus 2 equals 0. X minus 4, x plus 2, because this is the value of p of x, and if we find the zeros of the polynomial, then we take this value equal to 0. It means x minus 4, x plus 2 equal to 0. Now students, we take, because product of these two factors is 0, then either of x minus 4 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. So first we take when x minus 4 equals 0. When x minus 4 equals 0, therefore x equals plus 4. And when x plus 2 equals 0, then x equals minus 2. Yeah, student. First, because student in this question 6 part and every part same this type. First, we use middle term split. Then we find zeros of the polynomial. So we take this value equal to 0. We take p of x equals 0 and p of x value x minus 4 x plus 2 equals 0. Its product is 0 when possible. Either x minus 4 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. So first we take x minus 4 equals 0, then x equals 4, x plus 2 equals 0, x equals minus 2. And now students, we find the sum of zeros. Now we find sum of zeros. Student, you know, sum of zeros, zeros mean value of x. Now we find the sum of zeros. So what is the first value we obtain? 4 minus 2. So what is the sum? 4 minus 2, it means 2. Now we find product of zeros. Yes, students. Value of x, first 4 and second value minus 2. So what is the product we obtain? Minus 8. Okay. So first we find zeros, then we find sum of zeros, and after that we find product of zeros. But student, in this question mention verify relationship between the coefficient. Verify relationship between the coefficient. Now students, verify. Students, if we verify relation, we are using relationship between the coefficient. So first we write polynomial x square minus 2x minus 8. X square minus 2x minus 8. Students, this is quadratic polynomial. This is quadratic polynomial. So we compare this quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c. So first target we find the value of a. If we verify this, students, because p of x square minus 2x minus 8 this polynomial given, and coefficient of x square is a. It means what is the value of a? Its coefficient. No coefficient, it means 1. So a equal 1. After that, students, we find b. Coefficient of x b. What is the coefficient of x? Minus 2. It means b equal minus 2. And c means constant term. What is the constant term? Minus 8. So first we find its coefficient. Now we use concept verify relationship between the coefficient of polynomial. So students, we use, because student, you know, if alpha and beta are zeros of the polynomial, then sum of zeros alpha plus beta, which formula we use? Minus b by a. Alpha plus beta means sum of zeros. Yes, students, minus b by a. What is the value of b? Minus 2. What is the value of a? 1. So minus minus plus 2. It means alpha plus beta equal to we obtain. After that, students, we find alpha beta. We find alpha beta. Alpha beta means c by a. Alpha beta means c by a. What is the means of alpha beta? Product of zeros. Yes, students. What is the constant term? Minus 8. What is the coefficient of x square? Because a means coefficient of x square. Coefficient of x square 1. So it means a 1. So minus 8 by 1, it means this minus 8. Students, now we check this question. What is the sum of zeros we obtain? 2. And here alpha plus beta, sum of zeros is also 2. What is the product of zeros? Minus 8. And here product of zeros alpha beta c by a, this also minus 8. Students, if these both are same, it means our question is correct. Yes, students. If sum of zeros and product of zeros, sum of zeros here 2 and product of zeros here minus 8, and alpha plus beta equal to and alpha beta minus 8, if both are same, then students, its question is correct. It means we verify this question using to find zeros and verify relationship between the coefficient of the polynomial. Okay, students. Now this question 2.2 exercise question number first part first now you're complete. Yes, students. Now question number first part fourth. So question number first part fourth, in this question a polynomial is given 4u square plus 8u. A polynomial is given, and in this question find zeros of this polynomial and verify. Find zeros of this polynomial and verify. So students, first we factorize this polynomial. What is the common in both 4u square plus 8u? What is the common? 4u. So first we take common 4u. So u 4 2 8, it means we obtain 4u and u plus 2. So first we factorize this polynomial. After then, student, now we find zeros of this polynomial. We find zeros of this polynomial because this polynomial in the terms of u, so we write here pu. Now we find zeros. To find zeros, if we find zeros, then we take this value equal to 0. Then we take this value equal to 0. Yes, friends. What is the value of p of u? 4u. P of u means factor of polynomial 4u and u plus 2 equals 0. We take this value equal to 0. Now we find zeros of this polynomial. So first, either 4u, this value we take equal to 0, 4u equals 0, u equals 0 by 4, so u equals 0. Then we take u plus 2 equals 0, so u equals minus 2. Okay, students? First we find zeros of the polynomial. After that, students, now we find sum of zeros. Yes. What is the first zeros? 0. And second zeros? Minus 2. So, sum of the zeros, 0 plus minus 2, it means minus 2. Now we find product of zeros. 0 into minus 2, it means 0 into minus 2, it means 0. Okay, students? First we find the zeros, then we find sum of zeros and product of zeros. Now, students, verify. According to this question, verify relationship between the zeros and its coefficient. So verify. Yes, students, if we verify this question, first, what is the value of a? Coefficient of u square 4, it means a equal 4. What is the value of b? Coefficient of u, this 8. What is the value of c? C means constant term. Students, in this question, constant term is not given. So what is the constant term? 0. Okay. And student, finally, now we find sum of zeros. We find alpha plus beta minus by. You know, students, relationship between the coefficients. So alpha plus beta minus by. What is the value of B? 8. What is the value of A? 4. So this value minus 2. After we find product of zeros alpha beta, C by A. What is the value of C? 0. What is the value of A? 4. So 0 by 4, this 0. Now students, we check this question. Sum of zeros here minus 2 and alpha plus beta, this also minus 2. Product of 0, this 0 and alpha into beta, it's also 0. It means students, this question verified. Now your question number first part for the complete. And students, remaining question of first part same this type. And second question, students, I will solve tomorrow.